Our final destination on Transfer Talk is South America. We're heading to Brazil, where we can join South American football expert Tim Vickery. Good afternoon to you. Tim, we have to start with Douglas Luiz. A host of Premier League clubs have been wanting him. Arsenal have made a £20 million bid, but Villa, they want him to stay. How do you see this one going?
Well, you're far closer to the action here than I am. We're going to be speaking a lot about Brazilians in the next few minutes and a lot about central midfielders. And I think it's striking that of all the positions, it's the central midfielders from Brazil who found it harder to adjust to top-level European football. And maybe Douglas Luiz fits a little bit in that because he hasn't quite lived up to the hopes that swirled around him. And Man City brought him first, was in the Brazil side at the start of World Cup qualification. He now can't get in the squad. But certainly after what he's done over the last few days, you could imagine why he would be part of Aston Villa's project to conquer the world corner by corner. You know, those goals that he's put in straight from a corner should have added a lot to the transfer price. Arsenal clearly wanting to strengthen their central midfield areas. We'll see if this will be enough to prize Douglas Luiz away from Villa and to North London.
What about Danilo then? Because he's another Brazilian, another midfielder that Arsenal have been linked with.
Indeed, yes. And it's been reported over here that they put in a 20 million bid for him. They're going to have to up that, I think. And I would have thought it's more likely that a deal might go through here in January than now. The reason is on Palmeiras, his side, the reigning champions of South America, the Copa Libertadores, and they're in the fight to win it for a third consecutive time. They've got the second leg of their semi-final on Tuesday. He's suspended for that, but if they get through, they will definitely want him to play the final because they can't replace him. What is he? What would he bring? He is dynamic, left-footed central midfielder. He's involved in all phases of play. He snaps in with tackles. He wins the ball. He distributes it quickly. He's on the move into the next phase of possession. He's not a world beater, never going to be a world beater, but he's a very, very useful player to have around who's really grown under Portuguese coach Abel Ferreira. It's going to take more than 20 million, I think, from Arsenal, and it might need a little bit of patience because I think Palmeiras don't need to sell now, and they clearly won't sell now for 20 million. And in an ideal world, they won't sell until January.
Right, let's get back to Tim then. I want to ask you about Arthur Melo, because this one took us by surprise around about 9:30 this morning. Are you surprised with that news that he could be joining Liverpool?
Surprised and intrigued. And as we saw yesterday, you know, Liverpool at their best, they're so vertical, so relentlessly vertical. And Arthur is much more a possession-based midfielder. You see him certainly more as a Guardiola-type midfielder than a Jurgen Klopp-type midfielder. And when he came up the ranks, huge hopes around him with Gremio. He was always seen as a Barcelona midfielder. And that's where his European adventure started. And it hasn't really come off. As I said, the central midfielders seem to have found it hardest to adapt to top-level European football. And he hasn't been getting a game at Juventus. There is a player there. There's a player, lovely low centre of gravity, excellent at keeping possession. And it looks as if this deal is going through. It's one that no one saw coming. And it's Jurgen Klopp adding to his midfield options in a way that I think none of us could have foreseen.
Thanks so much for joining us throughout the window, and we'll chat to you soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Right, we are massively running out of time with me, Nikki and Andy here. Right, Andy, very quickly, Josko Vardial, a Chelsea target, signed a one-year deal at RB Leipzig. What are they missing out on?
Is the developing defender who can play left centre-back in a 3. So you're thinking of that Rudiger hole, or he can play left-back. He's going to be an absolutely terrific defender. I think it benefits him to stay at Leipzig for the extra year.
Who's been the best deal this window?
Oh gosh, it's not
putting you on the spot. I know.
It's not a very Euro one, but I actually think it might just be Arsenal signing Gabriel Jesus. I think it's such a signing that fits what they needed. If you think about last season, how close they were to getting back into the Champions League places, and in the second half of the season, really without a reliable goal scorer, Lacazette wasn't able to do that for them. So Gabriel Jesus, if he can be that, if he can link the attack the way he has in the first few games, I think it's a really, really smart signing.
Like their strategy, because they were really going hard for Dusan Vlahovic in January, but then they held out and waited to this summer to get a goal scorer in.
And he is providing all of that and a psychological kick as well. But there's also Haaland, and you just see this boy.
You can't not say him.
Yeah, who's scoring hat-trick upon hat-trick and who just looks like he's having a time of his life. And I don't know if that's the best deal as well when you consider the money.
You got a best deal in mind, Andy?
Slightly under the radar one. I'm going to go for Mohamed Camara, who's gone from Salzburg to Monaco, holding midfield. He's going to be one heck of a player. Already is. Had a brilliant debut against Paris Saint-Germain at the Parc des Princes. They sold Tchouaméni to Real Madrid. They bought him for a fifth of the price, and they'll end up selling him for a Tchouaméni price in a couple of years' time.
To Real Madrid.
Any more that are sort of under the radar that we haven't been talking about?
Under the radar, but Charles de Ketelaere hasn't had a lot of sort of chat in England, I don't think, because it's one of those ones that didn't involve a Premier League club. But he's looked really, really bright. Young Belgian international who's starting for games for Milan already and is really impressive and filling a gap that they need, having sold Frank Kessié, of linking the midfield and attack. Really looks like he's got some sort of, I guess, I don't know if physical growth is the right way of expressing it. He needs to sort of get used to the pace of a new league. He's obviously making the step up to Serie A from the Eredivisie, but he's looked really smart so far.
What about Lukaku back to Inter? I mean, you sell this player for over 100 million, you get him back a year later on loan. It's pretty great on a financial level because you just imagine that they're going to find a way of keeping him there and not having to pay a lot of money for it.
Has he been looking good?
Not quite yet, but we're hopeful.
The first time I've heard Mina praise Lukaku.
Yes,
it's
few and far between.
In one word, which clubs had the best window in Europe? One word. Dortmund. Roma.
Arsenal.
Okay, well, yesterday, a lot of people were saying Arsenal yesterday as well, actually. It might have been you, sir.
I said Arsenal.
And you said Gabriel Jesus as well. So
yeah, we're on the same
You
way.
are in sync. You are in sync, right?